All right, everyone, welcome. My name is Angela, and today we're going to be talking about batch editing metadata. This is the Mylio Photos coffee break, and what you can expect is about a 20-minute tutorial where we dive into a specific topic, and there'll be time for questions after the presentation. Before we get started, I do want to let you know about some of the other things we have going on here for you at Mylio. Every week we have these sessions on Friday at 11:30 a.m. Pacific, 2:30 p.m. Eastern, where we go into that one topic. And next week, we're going to be going into the story behind the photo and how to add metadata to scanned images. This is something that comes up quite a lot. We've got a lot of people who use Mylio for family history projects. So we're going to talk about that next week. It's going to kind of build on what we've been talking about the past couple of weeks with XMP files and today about batch editing metadata. That's all going to apply to those scanned images. So we're going to talk specifically about those scanned images next week. It's always a really fun topic, so I hope you'll join me for that. Also, if you have questions as you're getting to know Mylio Photos, we host a couple of different sessions depending on where you're at in your journey with Mylio Photos. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, I host open Ask Me Anything live Q&As. These are at 11:30 a.m. Pacific, 2:30 p.m. Eastern, and our informal drop-in sessions. There's no set topic. Bring your questions, come, and I will do my best to answer them about anything that's really photography related. And these conversations can go kind of all over the place, but they're a lot of fun, and you guys always bring some really great questions. On Wednesdays, we've started a new session for new users. And so if you're just starting to get acquainted with Mylio and you're wondering about how to import media from different devices or different places, how to set up a vault, what a vault is, and some of those questions that you have just as you're getting things set up, take a little bit of time to go to Lori's sessions on Wednesday, and she can answer questions for you that are going to help you set up a really strong foundation with Mylio Photos. You can find all of these by scanning the QR code on the screen or going to community.mylio.com/events and sign up for whichever ones you would like to attend. All right, so let's go ahead and dive into today's topic, which is editing once, apply to many, batch editing metadata in Mylio Photos. So the problem we're all solving is we're creating a lot of content. We take pictures all the time, and there's always stuff coming into our library. So we want to make sure that we're able to properly find the important things later on. So as an example, if you're out one weekend and you take a bunch of photos, or maybe you're a photographer, you've got a photo shoot, or you work on a specific scanning project or a project for work, you develop a lot of content, you bring that all into Mylio. If you were to address each one of these individual files one at a time, it creates a project that's never going to get done. We have the best of intentions, but unfortunately, when you have to address things one at a time, things often get pushed to the wayside because there are always higher priority things that come along. This is where batch editing comes in and solves that problem because it's faster than you think. You can do a step once, apply it to many images, and then later on, it makes your life easier because you can actually find what you're looking for and have those associations to where you can get to what you need. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Just a little bit of background. What is metadata? So if you're new to Mylio Photos and you're new to photo organization, metadata is information about your photo or any of the files that you bring into Mylio Photos. Some of it's added by your camera, some of it's added by you. So the part that the camera adds is called EXIF, E-X-I-F, and that's the make of your camera, the model, the lens, and all of your various camera settings that you use when you capture the photo. You can see in the screenshot up here, these are the various EXIF settings about this particular image. Further down the list in the info panel, you can add additional context and meaning. And these are things like titles, captions, keywords. You can add copyright information if you choose, location, people, all of these different things, and they all live inside the metadata, the info panel inside of Mylio Photos. To get there, what you're going to do is click on this little eye icon. Here's a bigger version of it right here. And that's going to open up the info panel. Now over here in this panel, you'll see that there are 4 different sections. That first one is info. So let me switch over to Mylio really quick, and I'm going to show you in my Mylio how to get there. We're going to go over here to the info panel on the right. Go ahead and click that, and that's going to go ahead and pop open this panel. And you can see I'm in the sync panel right now. So if I just click on info, there's my info panel. If I click on an individual photo, I get all of the information about that particular photo. So that's how you get to that particular information inside of Mylio. So let's go ahead and move on. Metadata is really important because that's where all of that information about your photo lives. One of the easiest ways to add metadata is to do it on import. Now, this only applies when you're doing a copy or a move import, meaning you have things on an external drive or a folder on your computer or a memory card from a camera. It's not going to apply when you're bringing in things from a mobile phone, which is I know where a lot of us are creating our content these days. In future versions of Mylio, this is going to change. But for right now, this is only going to apply to pictures that you're importing in off of your computer, off of a memory card, and you're using that copy or move option to import. And from this particular dialog, you can add metadata about your files. What you're going to do is you're going to click on Show Advanced Settings. You can see right here in the screenshot, it says Hide Advanced Settings because I already clicked on it and I'm seeing all of those options. And from here on everything in that import, you can apply keywords. You can change if you're bringing in a folder off your computer and there's something descriptive in that folder name and you want that to apply as a keyword, you can add that folder name as a keyword. You can add your copyright info and other things here that help make your pictures easier to find later. One thing to note is if you're brand new and you're not seeing the IPTC, which is your copyright information, you'll see right up here at the top, I have this option. Go into the settings and under advanced, and you can turn that IPTC info on and create a custom IPTC card. This is where you can fill out that you're the creator of the photo, your copyright information, and all of that. And then when you toggle this on, it automatically adds that information to your pictures upon import. If you are a if you're a professional photographer, if you're just a serious enthusiast, anyone who's putting their work out there and wanting to share their photography, this is a really good thing to have because it actually gives you the option to embed who you are and who created your file into that file when you export. So I do highly recommend doing this for people who are sharing their work. So this is what you can do just on import. So before those pictures are ever inside Mylio, you can add a lot of information. The reason why this is so important is because it's one step with a lasting effect. Every photo arrives in your library already with some context. And it's perfect for shared context batches. So a trip that you took, a specific photo shoot, a specific project you're working on, anything where the whole group has a shared story. When I add keywords and things like that to an import, I do try to keep it high level. I don't get very granular, but I might put grandma's birthday. I might put where it was at the facility we held it at. A few things that kind of are applied to everything in that group of images that I'm importing. The IPTC card auto applies. Again, that gives you your creator information that travels with your photo with no extra effort. Highly recommend. And if you miss these steps on import, don't stress because you can do this again later in your library. But it does pay off if you are able to do this when you import, just saves you a ton of time. So once you're in Mylio, there is a bunch of stuff that you can batch edit. So when a group of images is selected, Mylio becomes a very effective batch editor. You can change dates, titles, captions, file names, keywords, smart tags. Those are a little bit of an interesting thing. We'll talk about that here in a minute. IPTC, which is your copyright, categories, people, and places. And again, these are all listed in that info panel that we mentioned there at the beginning. So first, let's talk about selecting photos. Most of you probably already know this, but there are some different quirks when you're selecting things, especially on a phone or a tablet. So let's first start on a computer. If you are in the grid view in Mylio, you can select adjacent photos by clicking on the first image, holding down the Shift key, and then clicking on the last image. So let me show you that really quick. Select the first image. You can see it highlighted in blue. Hold down the Shift key on your keyboard and then click on the last image. And that would select that whole range of images all together. So that's one way that you can select. If you have scattered photos, so let's say you're taking a look at this grid, you can see I selected here a few in this row and then a couple in the next row, but there's ones in between that I didn't select. Again, it's marked by that blue border. That is where you can hold down the Command key on a Mac or Control on Windows. And so you click the first one, then hold down Command or Control, and then click the other individual photos that you want to select. And then if there's everything in a specific view, so let's say you're in a folder and you want to select everything in that folder, you can do a Command A on Mac or Control A on Windows to select everything. So most of you probably know that, but it's really nice to know those keyboard shortcuts for selecting multiple photos, because that's going to be very important as we move forward. If you're on a phone or a tablet, this is a little bit different because a lot of our touchscreen devices have gestures and they're not always easy to figure out. So in Mylio, when you're on your phone or your tablet, you can enter selection mode by tapping and holding on any image. And what that's going to do is it's going to, when you tap and hold, you're going to get that blue border around the thing that you're tapping and holding on. And then if you want to go ahead and select individual images in that view, you can just tap on more images, and that's your scattered photos. So kind of similar to holding down the Command or Control key, but you don't have any keys to do that. You just tap on the individual images that you want. There's also a little button down at the bottom of the screen, and it gives you the option to set a range. So if you want to do adjacent photos, again, you tap and hold that first image, then tap that range button, and then tap the last image in that group, and it'll select the first image all the way through the last image and everything in between. So that's really good to know as we move forward. So this is how you can make these techniques work both on your computer and on your mobile devices when you're out and about. All right, so first off, let's talk about batch editing dates. This is probably one of the most common ones that people are going to need to do, especially if you're working with scanned images, or maybe you travel and some things got shifted. So your camera might have your home timestamp in it, but you are actually 6 hours away. So shift is the first one I want to talk about, because that's going to be the one that when you're traveling and your camera doesn't have the right time and date stamp, or maybe you're on a plane, you go into airplane mode and you're over Texas, but your phone is set to California, it might not have caught up yet if you're not on the Wi-Fi on the plane. So there's a lot of different reasons why the time might be off for a specific set of images by a certain number of hours. So Shift makes that really easy. You can select the images that are affected and then go into the date created, click on that little ellipse and choose Shift. All right, so timestamp is a little bit different. This is when you want to take an entire group of images and change them all to the same time. Shift will take the spacing between those shots. So if you have one at 5:05 and then one at 5:07 and then 5:09, if you go ahead and do Shift, it's going to shift everything in that batch by a fixed amount. So the spacing between those shots stays intact. However, when you do the timestamp option, this sets one exact date and time across the entire selection. So it overwrites whatever's there. And again, you're going to go into that date created, hit that ellipsis, and then go to timestamp, and then type in whatever date, time, hours, minutes, seconds that you want to use. Mylio also has an option for what we call fuzzy dates. And these are things like date ranges, all day, month and year, seasons, and so forth. If you've ever seen this symbol on one of your photos at the bottom right corner, that's what that means. It means that that particular photo has a fuzzy date or a non-specific date. So you can also go and add that in this same menu where you see Shift and timestamp. Go ahead and scroll down and you'll see the date range, all day, month and year, and so forth. And that's going to allow you to make those changes to those dates. All right, moving on to editing the title and the caption. This is where you get a chance to share the story of an image. Now, I will say with title and caption, I'm a little bit pickier and I don't do this as a batch quite so often unless everything has the same story. So a lot of my pictures, I'll go through and do my editing. I'll pick out which ones are the highest rated. So you can see here, this one is like a 4-star. That to me is one that's worth adding a title and a caption if there's a story to tell. So I'll be a little bit more selective about that, but you can still go in and select a group of images and add the same title to all of them or the same caption to all of them. So if you have a bunch of pictures that were all grandma's birthday, that's a good thing that I would throw into the caption. That's going to make that really easy to find because all of this is searchable later on. So any additional context you add makes your images more searchable. Now, I will add one exception here is that if you've already gone through on some of those images and you've already added a title or a caption, and then you do a batch select and add another title or caption, it is going to overwrite and replace whatever you had there before. This is one of those fields where it overwrites, it does not append. So keep that in mind and be very intentional when you go through and make those kinds of changes. Batch editing file names. So this is one of those things that honestly I do when I import, when I have things coming in from my big camera. I don't so much bother with it with things up from my cell phone. But the reason that you might want to do this is because when something comes into your computer off of your camera, the standard file name, something like an IMG 3847, tells you nothing about that image. But if you have Scotland 2025 and then a sequence, that's actually somewhat useful. And again, this is a field that is searchable in Mylio. So you're giving broad information to a group of photos to make certain things easier to find later. If I just went in and renamed all of my Scotland photos to this particular sequence, anytime I want to find my Scotland pictures, if I type in Scotland, all of those pictures are going to just show up because that's what I put into the file name. Even if I added no other context, that makes it easier to find. One of the things that you want to pay attention to when you're doing batch editing for file names is you need to be in the everything space. So if you're working in a modified space, like right now when I'm doing my demos, you can see here at the top, I'm in the public space. I'm looking at a limited set of my library that I have set up to do demos. If I'm in the everything space, you can go over here to the left and pick a different workspace. You can go to everything, and then you'll have that option available to you. And what you would do is, again, select the images you want to use, right click on them, and then you can go to rename files. So there it is right there. And that'll allow you to batch rename the files. And the reason you want to be in the everything space to do that is because if stuff is hidden, you're going to end up accidentally excluding things from the renaming that you probably do want to include. So keep that in mind. But once you're in there, you can set up a prefix in a sequence. You can use any one of these presets, or you can create your own custom naming. So it's a really nice thing and makes things just a lot more useful if you have something mildly descriptive in that file name. Now, again, I'm going to be the first to say I don't do this on everything. Does that make some things harder to find later? Yes. But there are levels of effort that you want to take on certain things. So do this on the things that are most important. So if you take a big trip, I would say that is worth renaming those files. If it's just one-off snapshots from around town, I probably wouldn't bother. But again, it's a very personal choice and how you want your library to behave and what you want to be able to easily find later on. All right, batch editing keywords. This is a little bit fun. So keywords are one of those things that a lot of people have kind of drifted away from using because AI is so good. But AI does not think the same way that you do. The things that come to my mind when I think of a specific picture are not necessarily the same words that AI would use to describe my image. And especially if there's something that's particularly meaningful for you in that image that you want to be able to remember and recall that image by, adding a keyword or putting it into the title or caption for that matter, that's where that becomes really important. So what you can do is add your own keywords and make those terms searchable for that particular photo. So for these images over here on the left, the way that this works is the pills tell the story. The blue pills are with everything that's selected here. So you can see I've got a bunch of images selected. Blue says that is on every selected photo. So beach is on that particular photo. Gray means some of the images in the selection have that particular one. And what I can do here is if I hit the check mark, that will add that particular keyword to all of those images, or the X will remove that keyword from all of those images. And I'm going to actually go to that specific folder and show that to you. So I'm going to go here to my photos. I believe that was in 2024. And there's my data point. Okay, perfect. So if I go here and I select a specific photo and I go down to keywords, you can see that one has beach. Now, if I do a command, or if you're on Windows, Control A, select everything, you see everything in this folder is now selected. All of these were actually at Dana Point. So this particular keyword should be on everything. I can click that check mark, and that now added that keyword to all of those pictures. Most of these are long exposures, but not all of them. So I'll go ahead and leave that off. And then I can add other keywords here to everything. And I can just say, it was a very foggy day. So I can just say fog. And that just added keywords to 849 images. So you can see up at the top, 849. Um, what else could I add to these? They're all kind of blue in tone. So I could say blue if you wanted to add in a color. So just go ahead and say blue. So that's how you can batch edit keywords for a lot of photos. Again, this is really high level. If I wanted to go in and be much more granular, that's where I would start selecting individual photos. So let's say that one, and that one all had something in common that didn't relate to everything else. I could then add keywords just to those images. A couple of other cool things here. If you take the time to add keywords to one image and then you want to copy that to a whole bunch of other ones, you can say copy all and then go to another picture and say paste, or select a bunch of images and say paste. And that's going to take that group of keywords and paste them to all of those other images. As you're typing in new keywords, separate them with a comma. Every time you hit the comma and hit return, it's going to go ahead and add that new keyword. You'll also notice that as I'm typing in here from the list, you have a list that pops up and shows you everything that's already in your library. So you can then go ahead and select which one matches so that we don't end up with a bunch of different variants of the same keyword in your library. Just a really great tip on keeping things organized. All right, so that covers keywords pretty well. Let's move on to smart tags. So these are a little bit different, like I mentioned earlier. These are AI generated. So Mylio runs locally on your computer and generates these AI smart tags. And these are words that describe what the AI thinks is in your pictures. Sometimes they're correct, sometimes they're not. So you can go through and clean these up to fit whatever it is you're working with. And if you want these to stay with your picture, so one other thing to mention, smart tags are Mylio only. These do not travel with your picture once you export it. So if you think, okay, I want ocean to be a part of all of these, click that check mark and that actually promotes it to a keyword. And then the keyword is saved in your XMP metadata. It can be embedded in the file when you export, and then it stays with your picture. Whereas the AI smart tags, these only apply when you're looking at the image inside of Mylio. What I would do is if I want to promote that keyword to, or promote that smart tag to a keyword, click that check mark. Or if I said, you know what, place is kind of a vague smart tag. I don't want to search for place and have this come up. I can go ahead and click the X. And that's going to go ahead and remove that smart tag so it's no longer searchable underneath that particular tag. Additionally, as you're going through and you're cleaning some of these things up, you might actually X something out that you didn't mean to. And we have a tool for that. If you right click on a group of images, you have the option to rescan smart tags. That will regenerate those smart tags for that particular image or group of images that you have selected. So keep that in mind. It's not anything that's permanent. Once you click that X, that's no longer searchable. But if you feel like that was a bad choice, go ahead and regenerate those smart tags and you'll get those options back. And just once again, smart tags are not saved to your XMP file. These are local to Mylio only. All right, moving on to batch face tagging. This is another one that's a little bit different. While you're going to be able to see the results of your face tagging in the info panel, you don't actually do batch face tagging except for in the batch face tagging tool. It's a dedicated tool in Mylio, and honestly, we could do an entire coffee break just about this tool. But kind of at a high level, what it allows you to do is group together similar faces, you confirm it, and then you can approve, reject, skip, or ignore. All right, so you're going to find it by going over here to tools in the left sidebar, select batch face tagging, and then this is what you get. You're going to have faces that are similar grouped together, and you're going to see the name of that person appear at the top if Mylio knows who it is. And then you can say approve. And once I hit approve, that means that all of these are going to get tagged with this particular name. If this name is incorrect, I can say reject. And then those are going to come up again later on in the other tagging options. Ignore means I don't ever want to tag this face. This is someone either I don't know or I really just don't want to remember. And, maybe it's someone's ex that left the family and they're not important, or someone who was in your high school class that you're like, I don't even remember their name. You don't want them to be listed in your Mylio library. That's where you go ahead and hit ignore. And skip is, I don't want to deal with this right now. Let me come back to it later. So next time you relaunch batch face tagging, it will come back in this same format. So that's what those 4 different options mean. Batch face tagging is very helpful, and you can move through a vast number of images very, very quickly and get those names confirmed. So that way, again, making things findable in your library. One of the fun things for me is adding GPS information to my pictures. A lot of the pictures I take are with a standalone camera. Of course, I use my smartphone like everyone else. Those have built-in GPS, which is very cool. But everything with my big mirrorless camera does not have built-in GPS. So it's on me to take these into Mylio and add that information later on. So again, what you do is go into the info panel in Mylio, and you're going to go down to the places section and then click this little arrow on the map here. And that's going to expand that map out, and you're going to get a view like this. And what you can do from there is select whatever images that you want to do and then drag and drop those onto the map, position them where you want it, and then hit a check mark. And that confirms and adds that location information to your pictures. If you want to find a particular location, or if you even have an exact address up here at the top under Find Location, you can type that in. That'll zoom the map to that area. And then at the bottom right corner of the map, it's cut off right here. But down here in the bottom right corner, there is a zoom button or zoom in, zoom out, and you can get a closer look at whatever area that you're looking for. It's just a really great way to add that information. And again, being able to go in and look at the map view in Mylio, that is only really useful if your images have that GPS information. So if you've got a standalone camera that doesn't capture GPS, or maybe you're working with scanned family photos, that's a great time to add that information. One really fun example is on my map view. I can go in there and there are pictures from Detroit, Michigan. I have never been there personally. Maybe someday I will, but I do have things pinned on my map that are there. And those are from scanned family photos from my grandparents when they visited 50 plus years ago. So it's really cool to be able to see that on the map. All right, so we've talked about a lot of different ways that you can batch edit metadata in Mylio, and hopefully those are all helpful for you to add context and be able to remember and find things later. Just a little reminder about XMP files, that every time that you make one of these changes, especially to a large group of images, that is writing that information to the XMP file. The XMP file, which we talked about a couple of weeks ago, is a little text file that sits next to your pictures in the file system. These are super important because they hold all of those changes you make to your pictures in Mylio. So what happens is that gets written to the XMP, and then that XMP file has to sync to all of your various devices. So if you're making a lot of changes, do give that a little bit time. But these XMP files are also really a superpower in Mylio, and why Mylio is as fast as it is. It's because it's syncing these little tiny text files instead of having to sync your actual images. If it was having to sync all of your images every time you made a metadata change, man, the system would be bogged down all the time. So XMP really makes Mylio function, and it's very, very important. A few exceptions to note: smart tags, categories, albums, and events only live in Mylio. They live in the Mylio database, not the XMP file. So that particular information, you can only view that in Mylio. And just a reminder, don't delete your XMP files. They are crucial to the way Mylio works, and it's how all of those details move back and forth across all of your devices. So just to kind of wrap things up, the workflow that you should use from start to finish, very simple here. First, when possible, add your metadata at import. Take the time to add a few broad keywords that describe everything. Set up your IPTC card so you can add your copyright information and your creator information. Add custom file names. That's the best time to do that. And it sets a really strong foundation for later searching in your library. It's just one step that it takes off your plate for later. If you didn't have a chance to do that, or these are things coming in from your smartphone, no stress. You can do that in your library as well. So select a group of images that are related, go into the info panel and apply the necessary information. It really is that simple, and you don't have to do things one by one. And I think that's the greatest thing. We want to set up tools that can give us our time back and allow us to actually enjoy our memories as opposed to feeling like we have to go spend hours every weekend trying to catch up on the pictures we captured over the week. So hopefully this gives you some tools that make your life a little bit easier. And just to remind you that we've got stuff coming up for you next week, lots of good stuff. If you have additional questions or things come to mind, you can always come to my live Q&A sessions on Tuesdays and Thursdays. These are open to everybody, and we talk about lots of different things. Even remotely related to photography is good. I will do my best to try to answer those for you. On Wednesdays, we have sessions with Lori, and her sessions are specifically for newer users. So if you're just getting started with Mylio, and sometimes my sessions, like Sarah mentioned, I go at a little bit faster pace. So Lori is, I think, has a very calming voice and a very calming manner. So you might want to check out her session on Wednesday. It might be a really good fit. Everybody responds to different learning styles. So please feel free to check out her sessions as well. And then next week's coffee break will be on adding metadata to scan images. So a lot of the stuff that we talked about today is going to apply to next week's session, but we're going to go into it specifically from the angle of scanned family photos. So it's going to be a fun one. I hope you guys will join me. And with that, I want to wish you guys a great weekend. Hopefully get out and take some pictures, make some memories, and I will see you next week. Bye-bye, everybody.